You're listening to the newstreamingnetwork.com, home of goingsolomedia.com and WGSN-DB Going Solo Network radio, podcasts, and TV. Welcome to Divorce Coalition Live, a show designed for divorce professionals to enhance the divorce process to prevent re-traumatization of domestic abuse survivors. I'm your host, Jill Kaufman, therapist, divorce coach, and co-parenting expert. You can get in touch with me at info@divorcecoachjill.com, and divorcecoachjill.com is my website. The Divorce Coalition is a nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing education and awareness of divorce professionals and process change to create a more supportive and less traumatic divorce experience. We have united top podcast hosts and divorce professionals to create systematic change in the divorce process for domestic abuse victims. With 23.5% of divorces citing domestic violence as a cause, we bring you expert guests, practical advice, and enlightening conversations. Knowledge is power in creating change in the world of divorce with domestic abuse. So without further ado, let's get started. When a domestic violence victim is thinking about leaving her or his abuser, they may be in danger. Divorce professionals can play a critical role in helping domestic violence victims leave their relationships safely. Today, I'm asking my guest, Zisa Belfer, to share her expertise to educate professionals so that they can help domestic violence victims prepare to leave an abusive relationship and to be as safe as possible. Zisa Belfer is a licensed clinical social worker and specializes in grief and trauma. She speaks English, Hebrew, Spanish, and French. She was born and raised in Israel and was in the police department in Israel. And Zisa has lived in the U.S. for 12 years. She was the vice president of Safe Way Out, a domestic violence foundation. Welcome, Zisa.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Did I get everything right? Can you tell us more?
You did. I, in fact, was born and raised in Israel, where I was a child of domestic violence. I was also a police officer. Then came to the States and did my bachelor's, went all over the world, came back, did my master's, got married, got divorced, a part of which was due to harassment, stalking, etc., and all those lovely things. And by lovely, I mean not lovely. I've been very, very fortunate to be remarried. However, my current husband and I have worked both our children of domestic violence, and therefore both joined the Foundation Safe Way Out, him as the security consultant and me as the VP, in order to help survivors of domestic violence and also people trying to leave their relationship, be able to leave their relationship in a way that'll ensure them doing so in the best and safest way possible.
That's great that you were able to do that. Is that a national organization, or where is that?
It currently is based out of New Jersey, in the Burlington County area. You can visit their website at safewayout.org. I have not been part of that organization since I have become a licensed social worker, a licensed clinical social worker, and have opened Rise Up Counseling that has been taking up all of my time. However, one of the things that I do is I do help under the trauma umbrella, victims of domestic violence and survivors of domestic violence be able to work through their trauma, and sometimes even be able to work through some of their legality issues in terms of letters to the court and things of that nature through my therapeutic abilities and my expertise in trauma.
Awesome. Well, I know our topic is about helping people leave their marriages safely, but it's also any long-term relationship.
Absolutely. Of any sex, of any kind, of any denomination, race, creed, it does not discriminate, unfortunately, like several other things, including addiction, which often does take a big part of domestic violence. It does not discriminate.
Absolutely. Well, so I have some questions for you to get us started here. My first one is, how can professionals help domestic violence victims have situational awareness when leaving an abusive relationship?
Well, situational awareness is something that we should all have in general, seeing as a lot of the time we're not taught that the way people will assault each other is when the other person, when the intended victim is not paying attention. When I'm walking down the street and I'm on my phone, or I have my earpods in, or I'm just chatting and or scrolling, or whatever it is that I'm doing. I have a kid on one hand and, you know, groceries in the other, and I'm walking toward the car and I'm focused on something. The distractibility of the victim is very often what is the attraction of the assailant. When it comes to domestic violence, so much so, even more so, especially when young children are involved, because there's the knowledge that the parent, in many cases, a mother, is going to try to protect the child. Situational awareness is extremely important, even if it means several trips to the car. One trip to bring the groceries, another trip to bring whatever other things, and then the children. Situational awareness is being extremely aware of what is going on around me at all times, and having something that I can do to be able to make time and space to get away from my assailant, should that be the case. For example, for people who have iPhones, the Siri is a very, very useful tool, since it will call 911 if you ask it to. All you have to do is have your phone in your hand. The same thing for Android users, that could be with the Google Assistant, Bixby, or whatever different things are out there on the phones, so that while you're busy strapping your child into their safety seat, you can also, God forbid, should something happen, and when I say God forbid, I mean in general, goodness forbid, not in a religious way necessarily, be able to use the phone from a distance to call for help. The point is not necessarily to fight back. It's to create space and distance and time to get away, get away, get away, get away. That's how we survive, is getting away.
Gotcha. Well, so I think that's a great point when you're thinking about, like, that's an easy tool. Everybody's holding onto their phone. They can grab their phone. And so, I mean, you know, if I was thinking about things all the time, I think, you know, I would be stressed out all the time. And I guess you have to be aware, but try not to create so much anxiety that you can't function, right? So, you know, it's about being smart when you're being aware, right?
It's about being smart when you're aware and being hyper vigilant when you're outside. However, creating a situation where you can be indoors and as safe as you can be, so that you can then reduce that anxiety. There is a code system in the military that is used by the US military, actually, that goes from different colors. And the idea is to go from code black, where you are extremely aware, even to the point of stress, all the way into code white, where you can relax because you are home, things are locked, we have cameras, whatever it is that you might have. And now the stress is gone. And the idea is to go from one to the other, and to do so in a way that I'm only stressed and hyper vigilant, hyper aware of my surroundings when I need to be. But as soon as I get in the car, lock the door, have my foot on the gas pedal, and know that I'm not going to stop if I see him or her behind me, I'm going to go to the nearest police department. That's me being able to go further into code white. However, once I step out of the car, I'm back in code black, so that I could then go back into code white once I'm inside. So yes, it's about being smart, and it's about not driving myself out of my mind trying to be stressed out all of the time. It's about being stressed out some of the time so that I can be relaxed most of the time.
Right. Well, so these tools are great if you're not living with the person, but if you're still living with the person,
Absolutely.
do you have any suggestions for how you can create a safer
Absolutely. Space
environment?
and time to get away. So some of the simplest things that can be done in order to create that. First, believe it or not, is a regular doorstop, a 30-cent, 50-cent doorstop, a rubber doorstop that you can carry anywhere on your person, under your clothing, or in your shoes, so that should there be a situation where an assault is imminent or is beginning to happen, that you can, as quickly as you can, even throw pots and pans at the person, whatever is around you, to create that space, to get into a room, to put that doorstop, to create that space, so that one of the children, or if should you be lucky enough to have your phone or a window or something to create that space and time and call police. Whatever the story may be, it's to use simple household items to be able to get away from an imminent or beginning assault.
Mm.
So again, it's throwing the lampshade or forks at the person to give them that little bit of response, and then running away, creating space and time. That does entail, if there are children involved, creating code words, which can be extremely important both for family and friends and for children, that should the person trying to exit their situation say that code word, the friends and family and or the children know to call police or to call said friends and family, saying, you know, in many situations, unfortunately, mommy needs help. You need to come right now.
Mm-hmm. No, those are great tools. The doorstop I've never even thought about, but you shove it under the door and they really can't open it.
It's very, very difficult to open a door when a doorstop, especially a rubber one, is in place,
Right.
because the whole idea is that it'll conform to a door that is trying to be opened.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Ideally, you're not going to be living with the person, you know, and you can get a temporary restraining order, or, you know, like some.
Correct, which is actually a lot easier than most people think, is to obtain what's called a TRO, a temporary restraining order.
Yeah.
Really, it's about getting your police report, taking it to court and filing, and that's it. However, statistically speaking, and for those of you who are listening who might be still in this situation, it takes women and men, at least statistically speaking, at least 12 times of leaving and coming back before they leave for good. So if you are on number 11 or 12 or 15, it is not about self-blame. Why have I not left yet? Why did I not leave sooner? Sometimes the thought process is, I'm safer staying than I am leaving, because the other person said they would kill me or the children if I left. So it's safer for my survival rate to stay. For some people, it's safer for me financially because I don't have my own financial means to be able to feed my children or myself if I stay. So coming back or staying is not a lack of morals. It's not weakness. Sometimes it's a calculated decision that must be made in the moment. And if you'll allow me, Jill, there are also ways to squirrel away some money, documents, things of that nature, in order to start planning the real true escape that will be able to stick this time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. For the professionals can share this with their clients.
Absolutely, especially if there is a professional involved.
Yeah.
The number one most important thing is to have an object that can be used as another object. So if you have a deodorant stick, take out the deodorant, cut it in half, you have now, and put it back, and you now have half a deodorant stick worth that you can put dollar bills into, that you can start squirreling away dollar bills. I recommend putting it in a little bit of maybe cellophane or something, or a baggie, so that it doesn't get full of deodorant. But the point is, all joking aside, to be able to have some money put away, if not, then a bottle, not a bottle, a jar of face cream, where you take half the face cream out, you put your bag with some dollar bills in it and cover it up with face cream. You can have that, put it in your purse, and nobody will be the wiser, because even if the assailant is wondering where you're going with face cream, they're not going to think to look inside the face cream, that you have a copy of your Social Security card, your children's birth certificates, and some money that you managed to squirrel away, which, by the way, is another thing. How do we squirrel away money when the other person has control and financial dominance over the money? A couple of ways is to Venmo your friends for, say, pizza, and then have them give you back cash. When you do that, the assailant can look and see, well, you spent $20 on pizza for you and the kids. They don't know that you have $20 now in cash. Another way is to buy something on a card that the assailant will be looking through, for example, a debit card or a credit card, and then returning it at anything like ShopRite or Walmart or any of those places and return it for cash. And then the receipt will say that you purchased the item. You simply get rid of the receipt that says that you returned it. So you still have the receipt, which is always being asked for. There's still the correct amount of change. There just happens to be the return amount as well that can be stuffed anywhere. And women, especially, we can be very creative with where we put things in order to be able to then squirrel away dollar by dollar. One of the people that I had the privilege of working with, who was abused for 30 years in her marriage before she left, said that she would hide money in the one place he would never look, which was her Bible, because he was not a believer and she is. Okay. For another person, it was a very, very, very rich person who was being extremely financially dominated, beaten, forced to undergo things like plastic surgery for enhancements and changes, who took a very expensive handbag, made a hole at the bottom where you couldn't see it right along the seam, bought shoes, very expensive ones, on a credit card, returned them for cash, then put that cash inside that seam in which they made the hole. Now we have things that can be resold, things that can be returned, with still having the evidence that they were purchased and having the cash. It's important to have an object that seems like another one that nobody would think twice if I took and left with. So we're not talking sunglasses. We're talking a tube of not toothpaste, chapstick. To empty out most of the chapstick, leave about this much just so that that's what it shows. A $20 bill fits perfectly in that tiny little space. Mm-hmm. Just to get something to be able to get out, have enough food, and maybe someplace to stay for a couple of nights before you can go to your nearest shelter, police department, parents, whoever it might be, and however you might be able to get there. Gasoline. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, those are great ideas. And, as a professional, you're not required to give them everything, but even if you can remember a few of these things to give them some ideas, it gets them thinking, and then they can meet with a professional like you who can really go through all of these, the possibilities for them to.
Absolutely. And another thing as a professional is that, especially as somebody in the mental health field, it could be common for somebody to say, I just need to check in on my mental health, and then go to a professional who happens to have resources who can then use these during session. For example, for me as a psychotherapist, to be able to say in session, I have a burner phone for you. Who would you like me to call? What is the code word? Do you have those $5 you needed for me to squirrel away for you in my office somewhere? Or if you're willing to get involved in the money situation. I have had situations where I have made phone calls to lawyers to start the divorce process with a TRO, or which hopefully then becomes an FRO, which is the final restraining order, in session with a domestic violence victim whose assailant and 5 children were in the car outside. Because that was my responsibility as a professional, was to make sure that my client is safe.
Right.
And when they leave, has a feeling, not a false sense of security, but a true sense that something is being done to assist her in leaving this abusive relationship.
Right. And, there are therapists who are very, knowledgeable about this, and there are therapists who aren't, so it's important to find a therapist who has experience with domestic violence.
Mm-hmm. Especially, and that can very often fall under the trauma umbrella, in which case finding a trauma therapist who happens to also be, I have to deal with my eating disorder, which was created due to the domestic violence. But anyway, who happens to also do trauma. Well, guess what? They're more likely to have that domestic violence knowledge than a therapist who does only eating disorders or only OCD or anything of that nature. So that can often fall under the trauma umbrella.
Exactly. Well, so right now we're going to take a short break and we'll be back. Domestic abuse survivors experience a lack of trust in the divorce and legal systems in place to protect them. Research shows that many report re-traumatization in court and reported that legal professionals verbally threatened them, mocked them, did not give them a chance to speak in court, exaggerated the survivor's faults in court, and provoked them to elicit emotional reactions. In other cases, divorce professionals may be the first point of contact for survivors with the ability to help if they recognize the signs. The Divorce Coalition is a nonprofit organization created to change this experience for abuse victims and survivors through education and awareness of divorce professionals. For more information, go to www.divorcecoalition.com and please support us by making a tax-deductible donation at www.divorcecoalition.com/donate-now. And now back to the show. So you've given us a ton of tools, burner phones, door stops, code words, an object, things to hide things. And I loved like everything that you've provided. And I think these are great tools for people to share with their clients, for professionals to do that. What about telling friends, for people who are experiencing domestic violence? What would you say about telling friends and family?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of the time, by the time the domestic violence becomes apparent to the victim, at that point, they have become isolated from their friends and family. And therefore, at the first sign of domestic violence, at the first sign of domestic abuse, and this is where professionals must educate and be educated, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. It's about going to the friends and family and even just establishing, listen, I think something might be off. So if I use a word that is completely out of context, for example, I ask you to prepare my least favorite meal, you know that there's something wrong. If somebody extremely dislikes anchovies and they say, can you order me pizza with anchovies? Please know that something's wrong and that I may not be able to, but I need your help. One of the ways that professionals can do this, especially mental health professionals, is to be very familiar with the power and control wheel. And the power and control wheel looks a little bit like a color wheel or like a pizza pie with about 8 or 10 slices that covers the gamut of the ways in which a person can be abused, including the isolation piece, including isolating from jobs, from family, from friends, including the financial isolation, where the assailant is the one in charge of everything financial, and the victim has to be accountable for every penny, including using the children, using threats of suicide, meaning the assailant threatens suicide. And often the victim will think, well, I can't have them die. I can't be the reason that they die. I have to save them. I have to fix them. And thus, the power and control wheel becomes a very powerful tool. Sometimes a domestic violence victim doesn't realize that they are going through domestic violence until they are presented with evidence. And our field, Jill, is evidence-based. Well, everything that we do has to be based in evidence. And when I show a person evidence that is irrefutable, that they are going through something like this, one slice of this pie is enough. Many people, by the time they are in that place to be able to understand that they are, in fact, victims of domestic violence, usually will fill most, if not all, of the pie. And therefore, giving them resources not to take home necessarily, but to keep in mind that in Monmouth County, for example, in New Jersey, 180 Turning Lives Around would be the first resource to go to for women who are being abused. They have people on staff, to the point that was being said during the break that people in court may treat the victims very poorly, to have an advocate around to be able to hold, if nothing else, to hold the victim's hand. Could be the difference between them sticking with the TRO, with the temporary restraining order, or dropping charges, which could then lead to an unfortunate ending or continuation of the domestic violence. So being educated and educating as a mental health professional is absolutely critical for the safety and for allowing and helping and empowering victims to leave their situation.
Absolutely. And I think, you're highlighting how important therapists are. And I think getting a therapist involved when you're any other professional, like a divorce attorney or mediator or financial person, getting a trained divorce a therapist who really has experience with domestic violence would be really key, because then, it's not all on you. You have somebody who really knows what to do, and you can you can work with them and they can work with the client. I think
And
that's
you as the professional can begin creating a team, because a financial person who is a divorce professional, along with a divorce therapist, along with a divorce attorney, all of these people are going to be able to be a team surrounding the with the proverbial wall of support to empower. It's all about empowering the victim to leave and stay left, stay gone. And the only way to do that is to feel like he or she can. And in order to do that, those of us who have experienced it or are experiencing it or know what to do about it, to educate ourselves so that we can become part of that proverbial wall of support is critical.
huge. Absolutely. So what about like encouraging them to leave the relationship? Like, is that something a professional should do?
A professional can, but a lot of that has to do with gauging the situation. It's not something I would start out with, because if that were the case and the person would already be dead, they would already be gone. Often it's having to show them that evidence first. It's having to show them that it's even possible by sharing these skills and tools with them. Start squirreling away money, make photocopies of your documents. Then we can discuss what is keeping you there and how we can refute some of this perceived evidence. For example, that they will hurt themselves, or kill you or kill the children. How we can refute that evidence after there's already a plan in place. So to your point, yes, after the foundation has been established as to the fact that they actually are a victim, that there are ways out, and that there are people who will be there with them and for them to assist them in that journey to leaving and stay gone.
But in the end, it's their decision, because it could be, more dangerous if they leave, right? That's
Yes,
when it becomes
absolutely.
dangerous. So to take that on yourself, I think is you want to give them all the tools to be able to do it, but you really don't want to be pushing them to do it, because they may know better
Absolutely.
than you that's not.
It's about encouraging the journey, but not trying to control the outcome, because at the end of the day, the other thing that can happen is professional burnout. If I'm pushing all day long my clients to do something that they don't want to do, I will have nothing left for myself or to give somebody who is ready to hear it, because I'm so focused on getting the outcome that I want for them, when, just like you said, I don't know all of the ins and outs that the other person may know. So I can provide the tools. I can bring Moses to the mountain. I cannot make him walk up it. And therefore, seriously speaking, I can provide all of the tools. I can provide the safe space for the domestic violence victim to begin their journey and even continue their journey. However, I cannot expect, push. I can only encourage and support whatever their decision may be. And if their decision is to stay at the end of the day, it is my obligation as their mental health professional to have their back and to help them navigate through that, if that is indeed their decision to be safer in that way.
Exactly. And the other piece of it, and I've had this, happen with clients, is that they want to leave, but they're so scared that they, feel that they can't and they're stuck. And just because that is the situation doesn't mean it's going to be the situation forever. It just may mean they need more time.
They may need more time. They may need more tools. They may need another strategy. They may need a different person. They may need another person added to their team. Things that we don't understand when we're in pain is that the pain not necessarily will go away very quickly, but it can evolve. It can evolve into something else that will then make it easier for me to get out of pain. So allowing, just like you said, that time and that space, again, it all goes back to the time and space to get away. It's not about kicking the assailant when he's down like they do in the movies. It's about getting to a place where I'm safe enough to make time and space so that I can make my exit and hopefully, if the situation allows, stay gone.
Exactly. So in terms of like big advice, like what would be advice that we haven't covered that you would give professionals as they're working with victims of domestic violence?
Well, I think something that we haven't covered yet is the impact that this can have on the professional from the assailant's perspective. So if I'm now a part of the assailant's victims team, of the support team, that can make the professional a potential victim as well. Therefore, all of the tips that I'm giving for victims also go toward the professionals. So if you are a mental health professional or a financial planner or a lawyer or any other divorce professional, have that situational awareness. Park where there are lights. Ask somebody to walk you out to your car, especially if you know that you're dealing with a volatile situation, because sometimes the assailant will stop at killing the lawyer if he can't kill his intended victim or her intended victim. And we don't want to see that happen simply because, well, it's not me that they're after, therefore I'm safe. It's better to assume that we're not and go from code black to code white when we get home or in the car or wherever our destination is, than it would be to be in code white and then get blitz attacked, which would mean a surprise attack that I'm not expecting, which would be more likely to be successful than if I'm prepared, walking with a can of mace that you can get at any store, really, or having my phone ready to call 911 should anything happen. Look around, see who's around. I don't like the look of that person. No problem. I'm crossing the street. I'm parking close. I'm parking where there's light. I'm asking security to accompany me, et cetera, et cetera. This affects the entire wall of support, not just the person going through the divorce or the intended person going through the divorce.
Absolutely. I've been in therapy sessions with couples who, it is a little bit scary when you see one person who's not controlling their anger, and you don't know, that's under a controlled setting, and you don't know, like, let's say you're in a mediation session with both attorneys, and, the mediator or the attorney is somewhere by themselves, and you do have to be aware.
Yes, you do. You need to be aware that you don't get blitz attacked and that you listen to your gut. That is probably some of the biggest advice that I would give both victims and professionals, divorce professionals. Listen to your gut. It rarely steers you wrong when it comes to danger. When it comes to your situation, when it comes to who you date, that I can't vouch for. But when it comes to danger, your body, your brain will have the antennas going off. Listen to them, especially if you know that you're in a situation with someone who's in a volatile relationship that could end up poorly. Listen to your gut when you look up and you see the person. When you are walking down the street and you feel you're being watched, pretend like you are. When in doubt, pretend like you are. Go into code black, make yourself safe, and then do something about it.
Great. Very interesting conversation, and I think it's helpful to be aware of all of these things as you're working with domestic violence victims. And if we're concerned, think about how the victim must feel, in the situation. It's very scary. And so, having us, having divorce professionals as their team does so much for their feeling strong enough to do this, that this population is in so much need for us to be aware and really know what's going on. So is there anything else you'd like to share?
Just very quickly, to your point, please, if you're a victim of domestic violence, even if if you're a survivor and you've managed to get out, keep going to therapy. Your therapeutic journey doesn't end with having left. That's where it starts. That's where the healing starts. Having somebody walk you through and guide you through that process is critical to your mental health, and your mental health will then affect your children's mental health, will then affect your future relationships. Seek therapy. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. And can you give us how we can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So my website is riseupcounseling.net. The name of the official name is Rise Up Therapy and Counseling LLC. However, the DBA, the does business as, is Rise Up Counseling. You can contact me via Zisa, ZISA at riseupcounseling.net, admin at riseupcounseling.net, or you can call our admin line 732-823-9998.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for being my
Thank you,
guest
Jill.
today. And it was really a ton of information and really good information for people who are working with domestic violence victims. To my audience, thank you for being with Zisa and myself on this episode of Divorce Coalition Live. If you would like to listen to this episode again, you can find the link at www.divorcecoalition.com, the live tab show. All of Zisa's information will be available in the show notes. And we have a special gift for you, a free ebook called Stop Condoning Domestic Violence. You can get that at www.divorcecoalition.com/stop-condoning-ebook. I so enjoyed being your host. I'm Jill Kaufman. And again, you can get in touch with me at divorcecoachjill.com. You can find the Divorce Coalition at www.divorcecoalition.com. And please like and share our Instagram page at Divorce Coalition page. Join us in the fight to change an abuse survivor's divorce journey. Stay tuned next Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern for another episode of Divorce Coalition Live. Until next time, help us spread the word that divorce needs to change to create a more supportive and less traumatic divorce experience.